In this video, I will show you how I make my fabric gift bags. Here are some examples of the 3 sizes I have made. You will find this pattern on my website, or you can make your own to follow along. You're going to need 2 lining pieces and 2 outer pieces. We need to stitch down the sides and bottom, where the grey lines are. Once you've pinned the outer fabric pieces right sides together, if you want to add a label, you will need to add it at the bottom of one of the corners now. Now we need to stitch the sides and the bottom of the bag, leaving the top of the bag open. Start sewing down one side towards the bottom. Once you reach the box cut out at the bottom, you need to match up the side and the bottom like this. Keep sewing along the bottom seam and do the same for the next corner, and then sew all the way to the top of the bag. Sewing the corner seams together will make it easier to match up the seams later. Once you've done this for both the lining and the outer, you're going to open the bottom part of the bag where you've stitched it together. It will stay together because it's stitched straight across. This makes it easier to do the bottom of the bag. Flatten out the seams and pin those together. Once you've done both sides of the lining and the outer, you will want to get the bottoms and match them up and pin them together. Make sure it is the bottom of the lining matching to the bottom of the outer piece. Matching up the seam allowances in the middle, pin together. Now we're going to stitch them both together, and that's what's going to make our lining attach to the bottom of our bag, which stops the lining moving around. Remember to backstitch at the beginning and the end. It should look something like this. If it doesn't, you may have attached the corners incorrectly. Now we need to open up and iron the top of each of the seams for both the lining and the outer. This step is really important as it's going to make it much easier to thread our ribbon through. Turn the bag right sides out with the lining inside. Line up the lining and outer seams and pin it together. At the top of the bag, we need to fold over our hem, about 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch. I like to give it a press as I go and pin in place. We then need to fold over one more time and pin. You can press again if you like. I have found I didn't need to, so I have just folded and re-pinned. It's time to sew. I like to get fairly close to the edge of the hem, around 2 to 3 millimeters. Now we're going to sew 2 lines which will make the casing for the ribbon, which is what we will use to pull the bag together. As a quick guide to start off, I'm using a piece of masking tape, which is about 1 inch wide. You can also measure and mark your fabric with a sewing marker. I've placed a little bit of masking tape from where my last stitching is on the hem. I will use that as a guide to start with and then follow the same distance from the hem all the way around the bag. It's best to start just before the seam as you will need to backstitch over this section. This will give more strength to the stitches where we're going to open up the seam for the ribbon. Backstitch again when you get to the next seam also. I have changed gift bags here as this one is much easier for you to see. We're going to do a second stitch. And I'm leaving about 1 centimetre from the edge of my foot to the last row of stitching. Sew again, starting near the seam and backstitching over both of the seams. Here you can see we have backstitched over the seams. Now we are going to turn it right side out and we're going to unpick the seams between those two stitches that we made for the ribbon. Once you unpick the first stitch, it's pretty easy to unpick the rest. Do this for both sides of the bag. Now it's time to measure the ribbon. This will vary depending on the size of your bag. An easy way to measure out the ribbon is to go about 2 inches longer than the width of the bag and double it. You will need 2 pieces of ribbon this size for each bag. If you download my gift bag pattern, you will find the details on ribbon length for each of the 3 sizes. Now we're going to thread the ribbon using a safety pin. Place the safety pin in one end of the ribbon and thread through both sides until it's back at the start. Tie a knot. Do this again for the second piece of ribbon, starting at the opposite side of where the ribbon is tied. Now we need to trim the ends of the ribbon and using a firelighter, burn the edges so they don't fray. Here we have the final gift bag. Once you pull the drawstring, you can also tie the ribbon into a bow if you like. I have made 3 different size options. You can make any size by creating a rectangle pattern and adding the box corner cutouts. I think it's great to have different options for different gifts. And here is another set that I've made with my new Christmas tree watermelon fabric. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe to be notified of new content on my channel. Happy sewing, everyone!